Yes. So, in our previous classes, we have seen how glucose is metabolized stepwise. Now, in the glycolysis, the glucose is broken down to the level of pyruvate. And depending on the type of respiration, the pyruvate's fate is decided. So, in anaerobic respiration, pyruvate undergoes fermentation pathways. Whereas in aerobic respiration, pyruvate enters Krebs cycle. But before entering Krebs cycle, pyruvate gets converted to acetyl-CoA. And this pyruvate to acetyl-CoA step is very important step, crucial step in glucose metabolism, as I discussed in my previous class. So what happens here? The oxidative decarboxylation happens, and the pyruvate gets converted to acetyl-CoA. Acetyl-CoA is nothing but there is an enzyme, coenzyme, which is acetylated with our acetyl group derived from pyruvate. So see this, CoA is the coenzyme, CH3CO is the group, and where does this group come from? From the pyruvate, in turn from the glucose. So this acetyl-CoA linkage has a thioester linkage. So these thioester linkages are important in many metabolic pathways. Anyways, so we are seeing a first thioester linkage. And thioester linkage is between our acetyl group and CoA enzyme. And we also saw that this previous class that the glycolysis happens in cytoplasm, whereas Krebs cycle happens in mitochondria. In fact, mitochondrial membrane is also like a cell membrane. So the charged particles which carry the carboxylate groups, the phosphate groups, and all these charged particles, charged molecules cannot cross mitochondrial membrane. But in the cytoplasm, they are produced as anions, pyruvate, acetate, these are all anions. So acetylation of coenzyme to give us acetyl-CoA is also a means of transferring acetyl group from cytoplasm into the mitochondria. Because this coenzyme A is a big group, big protein, which is basically hydrophobic and crosses the membrane. So along with that, it carries our acetyl group and then deposits that in the matrix of mitochondria. So our Krebs cycle is now starting in mitochondria. Krebs cycle is also known with other two names, the citric acid cycle and the TCA cycle. TCA means tricarboxylic acid cycle. What is the first step of Krebs cycle? The acetyl-CoA, which has come from cytoplasm carrying the acetyl group produced from pyruvate, is now in the mitochondrial matrix, transfers its acetyl group to a compound called oxaloacetate. Please look at the structure of oxaloacetate. It is a combination of two acids, oxalic acid and acetic acid. What is oxalic acid? COOH, COOH. So this group is from oxalic acid side, whereas CH3COO minus is from the acetic acid side. So when these two subunits are combined, you get oxaloacetate. And oxaloacetate is a dicarboxylic acid. Now, for the first time, we are encountering a compound which is not derived from glucose. Oxaloacetate is not derived from glucose. Acetyl group is derived from glucose. Oxaloacetate is a component of Krebs cycle already present in the mitochondrial matrix. So the acetyl group is transferred to the oxaloacetate and we get a compound citrate. You know citric acid, right? See, whenever we talk about biological reactions which are happening inside cells, all the acids, we recognize them by their anion names. Acetic acid, acetate, citric acid, citrate, pyruvic acid, pyruvate. Why? Because you know the pH of a cell, usually pH is 7, the cytoplasm. And at this pH, all acids will be in their anion form. They get dissociated and become in the, and exist in their anionic form, COO minus form. Therefore, instead of calling them acid, we call them by their anion names, acetate, citrate. So citric acid, citrate. So where is our CH3COO group? This is the newly added one, right? Which has come from this side. This one. Therefore, the citrate is the first compound of Krebs cycle. First newly formed compound of Krebs cycle. Now, since this is the first compound of Krebs cycle, the Krebs cycle is also known as citric acid cycle. Why is it called tricarboxylic acid? It is on the structure of the citric acid. How many carboxylic group it has? COO minus, CO minus, CO minus 3. So this is a tricarboxylic acid containing 3 carboxyl group. That's what citrate is. The second step of Krebs cycle is citrate isomerized to isocitrate. You see the OH group on the third or the central carbon atom. The OH and H are exchanged in this reaction. So whenever a group is exchanged within the molecule, it is nothing but isomerization. And the enzyme which is doing this reaction is achotinase. But anyways, I did not mention the enzyme for the citrate synthesis. In fact, the citrate synthesis is a complex almost, not a single enzyme. It contains a lot of cofactors and other ingredients. So this is a complex. Citrate synthesis is a complex. Whereas achotinase is a simple enzyme which converts citrate into isocitrate. Now, the third step is an oxidative step. The secondary alcoholic group of isocitrate, where is the secondary alcohol group? Here, is oxidized to a keto group. And whenever oxidation takes place in a cell, oxidizing agent is required. And which is that oxidizing agent always available in the cell? NAD+. So NAD+ accepts the hydrogens and become reduced to NADH. And the secondary alcoholic group becomes oxidized to keto group. The complex which does this is isocitrate dehydrogenase. And I told you these dehydrogenases are the class of enzyme which are involved in redox reactions, biological redox reactions, along with a decarboxylation step also. Which gets decarboxylated? The central carbon atom which bears carboxylic group. The carboxylic group is removed from that to give simply H. So after this oxidative decarboxylation step, what is the product we are left with? A dicarboxylic acid called glutaric acid. You know, there is a series, homologous series in chemistry, which is in short form referred to as Ohm's-Gaw. What is this Ohm's-Gaw? This is a series for dicarboxylic acid series. O is oxalic acid, malic acid, succinic acid, glutaric acid, adipic acid. So combinedly, this is called Ohm's-Gaw. So oxalic acid 2 carbon atom, maleic acid 3 carbon atom, succinic acid 4 carbon atom, glutaric acid 5 carbon atom. In fact, we are going to come across all these 4 dicarboxylic acid in glucose metabolism. Oxalic acid we have already come across in the form of oxaloacetate. And this is glutaric acid, 5 carbon atom. See here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's a dicarboxylic acid. But it also contains one more group in it, that is the keto group. Where is it? Alpha 2 carboxylic acid. Therefore, the full name of the compound is alpha ketoglutarate. Why glutarate? Glutaric acid should be called by its anion glutarate. So the isocitrate undergoes oxidative decarboxylation to give us alpha ketoglutarate. And this is a very important step. Why? Because NADH is produced. Whenever NADH is produced, it goes to ETC and liberates ATPs. 1 NADH is always equivalent to 3 ATPs. Carbon dioxide is also removed. So this is the second decarboxylation happening in the glucose metabolism. Where did the first decarboxylation happen? pyruvate to acetyl-CoA. Decarboxylation happened. This is the second decarboxylation step happened. So totally how many molecules of carbon dioxide have been removed till now? 4. Because I told you, right? Every reaction you have to multiply by 2. Because one molecule of glucose gives 2 glyceraldehyde. One glyceraldehyde we are tracking. What are the reactions of one glyceraldehyde? Everything should be multiplied by 2. So how many carbons of glucose? 6. Out of 6, already 4 carbons have been lost in the form of carbon dioxide. Anyways, we'll go to step number 4. And step number 4 is one more oxidative decarboxylation. Where is the, or simply, which carbon is removed is important. Now, I mean, I request all of you to please stop your videos. Yeah? Why do you switch on your videos suddenly? Huh? I mean, that has become really a very hectic job for me during all meetings. Simply, your videos pop up and I try stopping them. So please do not switch on your videos unless I ask you to do so. Okay, fine. So this is second oxidative decarboxylation of Krebs cycle. And when I tell oxidation, always NAD plus should come into picture. NAD plus is converted to NADH. NADH goes to Krebs cycle, gives you, I'm sorry, ETC gives you 3 ATPs. So why am I stressing on this point? NADH goes to Krebs cycle ETCs and gives you 3 ATPs, because that is what the essence of glycolysis is. Glucose, while it is getting oxidized, broken down slowly, should be giving you ATPs. At least, if not in all steps, in majority of the steps, it should be giving you ATPs. Krebs cycle is like that. At least 50%. There are 8 steps in Krebs cycle, and 5 steps are giving you ATPs in Krebs cycle. Fine. So you will get a product succinyl-CoA, and you know how is the the CoA you see here. The CoA was removed in this step. The acetyl-CoA, acetyl group was transferred to oxaloacetate, and CoA was removed. Coenzyme A. It comes back in the step number 4 to give you succinyl. Step number 4, yes, this one, to give you succinyl-CoA. And you see 1, 2, 3, 4. How many carbon atoms in succinic acid? What is succinyl-CoA? It is simply but succinic acid. One carboxylic group of succinic acid is thioesterified with CoA. But how many carbon atoms in alpha ketoglutarate? 4, 5. So if 5 carbon atoms compound is becoming 4 carbon atom, 1 carbon dioxide has to be removed, or 1 carbon has to be removed in some form. And the form in which it is removed is carbon dioxide form here. So carbon dioxide is removed to give you succinic acid. So please remember your dicarboxylic acid series. From glutaric acid 5 carbon atom, we have come down to one step below succinic acid, succinyl-CoA. And the succinyl-CoA, this is step number 5, is a high energy compound. And whenever I talk about high energy compounds, immediately substrate level phosphorylation comes into picture. So succinyl-CoA transfers its, what is the difference between the substrate level phosphorylation we have seen till now, those 2 substrate level phosphorylation which happened during glycolysis, diphosphoglycerate becoming phosphoglycerate, phosphoenol pyruvate becoming pyruvate. In all those substrate level phosphorylations, those two substrate level phosphorylations, phosphate group was transferred from those molecules directly to ADP. But this substrate level phosphorylation is different in 2 ways. In first way, there is no phosphate group in succinyl-CoA, but the hydrolysis of this thioester itself is exergonic. This bond itself is exergonic. In fact, in my classes way back, sometimes back, way back, I showed you a slide in which I had listed different types of bonds whose hydrolysis would be exergonic. One bond of that sort was your mixed phosphoric anhydride bond. When phosphate group is attached to hydroxyl group. So that is phosphate ester bond. That was one example. The other example was this thioester bond also. So in this reaction, the thioester bond is hydrolyzed and the energy liberated due to this hydrolysis is used to link a phosphate group separately, inorganic phosphate, to GDP to give you GTP. So directly ATP is not synthesized in this step. Instead, GTP is synthesized. What is GTP? Guanosine triphosphate. Energetically, GTP is equivalent to ATP. Fine. So we can also tell that product is ATP in this reaction. ADP is converted to ATP. So an example of substrate level phosphorylation. And the enzyme which is responsible for this is succinyl-CoA synthase. And please note, there is no kinases involved. In our previous two reactions, substrate level phosphorylation, kinases enzymes were involved. But here kinase is not involved. So directly, the ATP is synthesized by linking it to inorganic phosphate. GTP is synthesized. Anyways, so what is the remaining part when the CoA group is removed? It is simply succinic acid. Succinic acid undergoes another step of oxidation. And this time, in this oxidation, alcoholic group is not converted to carbonyl group. Instead, alkane is converted to an alkene, or a single bond is converted to a double bond. Oxidation means many things. It can be either addition of oxygen, it is called oxidation, or removal of hydrogen is also called oxidation. And this is the example of the second salt. Two hydrogens are removed from the neighboring carbon atoms to give you a double bond. So oxidation takes place like this. And interestingly, oxidizing agent is not NAD+. Instead, the other oxidizing agent which is present in the cell, FAT, which is getting converted to FADH2. See, there is a difference in the working of NAD+ and FAD as oxidizing agents. NAD+ is used whenever alcoholic groups have to be oxidized, or whenever the carbonyl groups are taken up or down in the oxidation ladder. But FAD is used when single bond, CC single bond has to be converted to double bond, C double bond C. See here, FAD. How is this H2? These are the H2s of succinate, two heads of succinate. So FADH2. The enzyme which does this is succinate dehydrogenase. What is the compound which you get? Fumarate. Fumarate. And fumarate is trans compound, basically. Where have you heard of this fumaric acid before? Not in biochemistry, I'm talking of. In the cis-trans isomerization. Is it not? Examples, malic acid and fumaric acid. They are cis-trans isomers. This is the trans compound, fumaric acid. Succinate dehydrogenase gives you fumarate. And step number 7 is simple addition of water to fumarate. The double bond adds water to give you malate, malic acid, malate. Now, we are simply a step away from the completion of Krebs cycle. There are 8 steps in the Krebs cycle. We are in step number 7. The enzyme which does this fumarate to malate. It is simply addition of water. What is the last step now of the Krebs cycle? Is nothing but the conversion of malate to oxaloacetate back. What is oxaloacetate? That was a compound which was used in the first step of Krebs cycle. When oxaloacetate condensed with acetyl-CoA, it gave us citrate. Now malate is oxidized. The hydroxyl group is converted to keto group. And whenever hydroxyl is converted to keto, NAD plus comes into picture. NAD plus becomes NADH. And oxaloacetate is regenerated. Okay, anyways, I just wanted to tell something about this FADH2 in the step 6. FADH2 goes to ETC and gives you how many gives us how many ATPs? 2 ATPs. NADH gives us 3 ATPs. FADH2 gives us 2 ATPs. Anyway, we will take the count of ATPs also of the Krebs cycle later. But as of now, whenever FADH2 is produced, make it equivalent to 2 ATPs. Whenever NADH is produced, make it equivalent to 3 ATPs. So malate to oxaloacetate is the last step, which is meant for regeneration of oxaloacetate. This is also oxidation, but there is no decarboxylation, only oxidation. NAD plus giving us NADH. The enzyme is malate dehydrogenase. Fine, good. But now, what are these metabolic cycles? Krebs cycle is a metabolic cycle. Glycolysis is not called cycle. It is a linear pathway. But Krebs cycle is a cycle, which is a cyclic pathway. So what is the difference basically? In these cycles, always the first compound is the last compound also. So which was the first compound involved in Krebs cycle? Oxaloacetate. Which is the last compound of Krebs cycle? Oxaloacetate. Okay, so do you understand this? So in such sequences, pathways, they're called cyclic pathways, where the first compound is also the last compound. Therefore, oxaloacetate is regenerated at the end of Krebs cycle. But you see, one more carbon dioxide is removed in this step. So finally, all 6 carbon dioxides are removed from glucose after this step. So from step 5 onwards, essentially, strictly speaking, once this carbon dioxide is removed after step 4, glucose is fully oxidized. So from step 5 to step 8, it is those steps which are targeting the regeneration of oxaloacetate only. So that's it. So these are the reactions of Krebs cycle. And now what is the overall reaction of the Krebs cycle? It is this. Why have I taken 2 acetyl groups? Because from one glucose, 2 pyruvate is produced, 2 acetyl groups, 2 acetyl CoAs are produced. 2 acetyl groups plus 6 NAD plus 2 FAD plus 2 ADP plus 2 PI, giving rise to 4 carbon dioxide, 6 NADH, 6H plus, 2 FADH2 and 2 ATPs. This is the overall reaction of Krebs cycle. Now, let us simply calculate the number of ATPs produced in Krebs cycle. You see, out of 8 steps in Krebs cycle, 5 steps give us ATPs. Step number 1 doesn't give us. Step number 2 doesn't give us. Continuously 3, 4, 5, 6 gives us. Step number 7 is simply hydrolysis, doesn't give us hydration, it doesn't give us ATPs, while the 8th step also gives ATPs. So look at those steps which give ATPs. When I tell ATPs are given, it can be either through substrate level phosphorylation or through production of NADH and FADH2 also. So isocitrate to alpha ketoglutarate, NADH is produced, and 1 NADH is equal to 3 ATPs. Alpha ketoglutarate to succinyl CoA, NADH is produced, 3 ATPs. Succinyl CoA undergoes, does substrate level phosphorylation, so only 1 ATP. Succinyl CoA to succinate, succinate to fumarate, FADH2, and FADH2 is equivalent to 2 ATPs. And malate to oxaloacetate, 1 NADH, 3 ATPs. So when one molecule of acetyl CoA enters Krebs cycle. After getting processed in the Krebs cycle, 12 ATPs are produced. Do you understand? So what is the ATP output of Krebs cycle? 12. What is the substrate of Krebs cycle? Acetyl-CoA. And these 12 ATPs we have calculated for one acetyl-CoA. How many acetyl-CoAs are derived from glucose? 2. So because of Krebs cycle, total ATPs produced from glucose is 24. 12 into 2, 24. Fine. So we'll just now go into the last part of glucose metabolism, that is calculation of energy efficiency of glucose metabolism. So at the end of Krebs cycle, we can say that glucose is fully oxidized because 6 carbon dioxides have been liberated. But when the glucose is fully oxidized, let us compare the energy obtained from glucose to the actual energy available in the oxidation of glucose reaction and see how much is converted to ATP. So when glucose molecules is fully oxidized, example combustion, fully oxidized, it gives us 683 kilocalories per mole. This is the enthalpy of oxidation of glucose, 683 kilocalories per mole. That much heat is liberated. But out of 683 kilocalories per mole, how much energy is converted to ATP? Is the question. A very important question this is, because energy efficiency calculation is important to compare the efficiencies of different pathways. How much energy is converted into ATPs? For this, we have to consider two types of respiration, because glucose is oxidized in anaerobic way as well as aerobic way. Although aerobic respiration predominates, anaerobic respiration is still seen. So let us calculate the energy. So let us calculate the energy efficiency for anaerobic respiration first. How many ATPs are got from anaerobic respiration? Only 2. So 2 ATPs are nothing but is equal to how much of energy? 1 ATP is 7.3 kilocalories of energy. So 2 ATPs is 7.3 into 2, 14.6 kilocalories per mole. But what is the energy available in glucose? 683 kilocalories. So how to calculate efficiency? Energy conserved or energy obtained divided by total energy available into 100. So total energy is 683. Energy available output is 2 into 7.3 kilocalories. So if you solve this equation, you get 2% as your energy efficiency. In fact, a bit less than 2% even. 2% is simply a rounded off figure. So in anaerobic respiration, only 2% of the energy available in glucose is converted to ATPs. Very low value, is it not? Now let us move on to aerobic respiration. What is the energy output of aerobic respiration? So in aerobic respiration, let us break down that aerobic respiration into different stages, which are the important stages in aerobic respiration. Anyways, you now send your names in the chat box for the attendance sake. All of you send your names. I'll continue the class. Okay, there are 4 stages totally in aerobic respiration. One is the glycolysis, and then a transition reaction that converts pyruvate to acetyl-CoA, and then the Krebs cycle. These are the 3 important stages of aerobic respiration. Of course, because our NADH and FADH2s are produced, you should also consider ETC as a part of aerobic respiration. So there is ETC, and ETC produces ATP through chemiosmosis method. Is it not? So these are all 5 essential components of aerobic respiration: glycolysis, Krebs cycle, glycolysis and the intermediate reaction of pyruvate acetate, Krebs cycle, ETC, ATP synthase complex. So these are all 5 essential components of aerobic respiration. So now let us see how much of energy ATPs are produced in each step, in each component. Glycolysis gives us how many ATPs? 8 ATPs basically. How? Because in glycolysis, there are 2 substrate level phosphorylation steps. So that will give us 4 ATPs because everything has to be multiplied by 2, right? So 4 ATPs. And we have 2 NADH, which will give us 6 ATPs. But 6 plus 4 should be equal to 10, but minus 2 ATPs. Why? Because 2 ATPs have been used up in the preparatory phase. So combination gives us, or the addition gives us 8 ATPs in glycolysis, 8 ATPs. And in the intermediate step, where pyruvate is converted to acetyl-CoA, 2 NADH are released. Therefore, they are equivalent to 6 ATPs. So 4 plus 4 plus 6. And then in Krebs cycle, what's the total energy output of Krebs cycle? 12. That's what 12 ATPs we have calculated in the previous slide. So 12 plus 12, 24. 24, and you add all these figures, you get a total number of 36. Now, if 36 is the net gain of ATPs, that is equivalent to how much of energy? 36 into 7.3 kilocalories of energy divided by 683, because 683 is the total available energy in the glucose. If you do this, you get 38.5% is the energy efficiency of glucose metabolism fully, starting from glycolysis to Krebs cycle. 36 ATPs are obtained and 38.5% energy is conserved. Fine. So this is what the respiration is all about. So what have we done actually? We have just studied the chemistry of respiration. You can study respiration in other angles also, but in your chemistry subject, we have studied from chemistry angle. Now, finally, you simply have to compare aerobic and anaerobic respiration. So what are the key differences? Aerobic respiration involves oxygen, anaerobic does not. This point we have discussed, because in aerobic respiration, there is mitochondria, there is ETC, terminal electron acceptor has to be oxygen, that's why oxygen is required. Whereas in anaerobic respiration, oxygen is not required because there is no mitochondria, there is no ETC. NADH is converted back to NAD plus by pyruvate itself, is it not? Next, oxidation of glucose. In aerobic, it is complete. 5, 6 carbon dioxide have been released from glucose. Complete. In anaerobic, it is incomplete. Why? What is the product of anaerobic respiration? Either lactic acid or ethanol. Both lactic acid and ethanol still have carbon atoms retained from glucose. So they have not been completely broken down into carbon dioxide. So therefore, anaerobic is incomplete oxidation. What are the waste products? We should not tell as waste product. We should call them end products. So what are the end products of aerobic? Water and carbon dioxide. What are the end product of anaerobic? Lactic acid or ethanol and carbon dioxide. And glycolysis, yes, it is involved both in aerobic and anaerobic. And what is the oxidizing agent during glycolysis in both modes of respiration? It is NAD plus only. Which is the final electron acceptor? Oxygen in case of aerobic, whereas in anaerobic, it is either pyruvate in the lactic acid pathway or acetaldehyde in the ethanol fermentation pathway. How many ATPs are produced? 38. See, there are calculations which set the total ATP from glucose oxidation to be 36 to 38 because the correct picture has not been arrived at. 36 to 38 is the actual answer. So you use 38 ATPs or 36 ATPs, doesn't matter. So number of ATP produced is 38, whereas number of ATPs produced in anaerobic respiration is only 2. So by comparison, aerobic is far more efficient than anaerobic in terms of its energy yield. Fine. So this is what all about glucose metabolism is. So we have completed glucose metabolism also. Next class, we will take up lipid metabolism. Anyways, so